We back. About a week ago, I dropped a video where I was reacting to a Bleacher Report article ranking the top 50 players of the decade. Some of the stuff I didn't agree with at all. Some of it I did. But one thing we all can agree on is that, well, you guys liked that video. Like, really, it was one of the most viewed videos in consistency. So that told me that y'all want to see me react to more highlights. And the one we're doing today is every NBA team's signature moment of the decade. The way we're going to do this, we're going to sit back, read it a bit, and I'm going to react. I mean, that's what a reaction video is, right? But I also want to try to see if I can predict the signature moments, because that's kind of cool, right? If I can predict the signature moment of a franchise, that means for this entire decade, Kenny been on his game. But I'm also not treating it like a quiz, so if I get it wrong, who cares? You know, because a signature moment can mean so many things. It can mean a signing, a trade, a shot that I don't remember from 2010. It can be so many different things. So if I get them wrong, who cares? And we'll see if I can agree or disagree with all this stuff. So this is an expert poll, experts from Bleacher Report. So let's see how this is gonna go. Let me read this little beginning part and see how they determined each thing. Okay, so I kind of like the method that Dan Favale went through. He went to the streets, which is just emails. I guess that's the NBA streets or the writer's streets. He went to Twitter DMs, phone conversations, and he also just talked to people that are experts of certain teams, right? He didn't just talk to people that maybe watch 50 total Utah Jazz games this decade. He talked to people that watch every single game, that are experts on specific teams. I think that's the best way to do things. Instead of just being one guy's opinion, it can be 1,000 guys' opinion trying to figure this out. So let's start off with the Atlanta Hawks, I'm guessing. Yes. And okay, so the way this is formatted, I probably won't be able to predict. So give me a second. I'm going to pull up every team in alphabetical order. So the next will be Boston Celtics and so on and so forth. Okay, so the Atlanta Hawks, they're started 5-1, Eastern Conference Player of the Month. I remember this happening. And what year was this? 2014, 2015. It was like a big moment because in my belief, or what I can remember, this has never happened before in NBA history. For you guys that don't know, this team went an entire month basically without losing a single game. And instead of naming like, hey, it was Al Horford the Player of the Month, they said, y'all whole started 5. Player of the Month. And then later, 4 out of these 5 guys ended up being all-stars. Jeff Teague had his first all-star appearance. Paul Millsap got an all-star appearance. Al Horford's been there a few times. And then Kyle Korver was an injury replacement for, I think it was Dwayne Wade that year. So 4 out of the 5 guys ended up being all-stars. 5 of them won Player of the Month. And that's kind of a big deal until they got to the playoffs, and then they went against LeBron, who was just killing everybody in the Eastern Conference for this decade. Which is dope. That's a big moment. That is definitely a big moment. And then, Kyle Korver went on to win, or to make the All-Star game. So the Boston Celtics, what could be the most, the thing that comes to mind is, of course, the trade, right? The trade that sent KG and Paul Pierce to Brooklyn, and they got all the draft picks. I think Jaylen Brown ended up being the draft pick for them. I think that is their signature moment. But because of those picks, they ended up with Kyrie for 2 seasons. And because of those picks, well, now they have JB and JT both killing the game. That would be my prediction. Isaiah Thomas's arrival. Interesting. Yo, Isaiah Thomas coming to Boston. That was the time I fell in love with Isaiah Thomas as a basketball player. Of course, I knew him when he was in Sacramento. I knew him when he was in Phoenix. But when he started his stardom, I was like, man, you got to think about a guy his size, just like, what's 5'9", being generous there. Him becoming an MVP player at 5'9" is something we may never, ever see again. And you got to think about all the things he did for the city before they traded him away, where like his sister passed away in a tragic car accident, and then a few days later he came out and dropped like 50 in a playoff game. So I understand why this is it. I probably would have still gave it to the trade, the KG trade. And that's what they said here. The high stuff was the 2013 Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce trade. So that was in contention, but they gave it to Isaiah Thomas. China, his sister passed away in a car accident. And then, that's a big time moment. Next team would be the Brooklyn Nets. I guess you could say the same thing, right? Their big time moment would be getting KG and then getting Paul Pierce and giving up all those trades, or all those trade assets. That would be my guess. Nope. Oh, what am I doing? This just happened. So that's why I wasn't my. Of course, the biggest moment here is signing Kyrie and Kevin Durant. Gotta be the biggest moment, because when that trade happened with the KG and Paul Pierce stuff, well, they were one of the laughing stocks in the league, man. For years. They were bad, and they were so bad, and they couldn't keep their draft pick. There was no reason to tank. You know what I'm saying? They didn't have the draft pick. They were giving up unprotected picks That is just so crazy. But of course it's this, because Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are both franchise-changing players, especially when you put them together. Next season should be very special for the Brooklyn Nets, 100%. Charlotte Hornets. What is the best signature moment I could think of for the Charlotte Hornets? Probably Kemba Walker being drafted, right? Because what else has really happened? Since Kemba Walker's been there, they had a couple playoff appearances, and he's been the spark in their entire decade. So that would be my guess. Kemba Walker sets franchise all-time scoring record. So I was wrong, but I was still right, because Kemba Walker did all of that. And I don't remember that he had to get a standing ovation when he returned this season, right? Because he did everything he could for the season, this city. It just so happened that the team had a terrible time building the team around him, where like they gave Nicholas Batum this huge, even to this day, you like, he get paid $26 million. Cody Zeller gets his big old contract. Bismack Biyombo making $17 million a year. They tried to build a team around him. He did a terrible job at it. And I kind of understand the Nicholas Batum, but not the money, but the signing, because he was coming off some pretty decent seasons in Portland, where he was a big-time part of the Portland Trailblazer team. They're like, you know what? We want to take that and put him alongside Kemba. Didn't work out. But yeah, next team will be the Chicago Bulls. What is the Bulls' signature moment this decade? Derrick Rose MVP is the only thing that comes to mind. I'm wrong again. Game 1 victory in the 2011 Eastern Conference Finals. Yo, don't get me started, bro. Don't get me started, bro. Y'all gonna make me go watch these highlights again, man. So, a little backstory for y'all that wasn't around in 2011 or don't remember. The Chicago Bulls team, it was Derrick Rose, Keith Bogans, Lou Al, Carlos Boozer, and Joakim Noah. Then we had Taj Gibson off the bench. We had a pretty decent bench unit. Ronnie Brewer was still on that team too. Either way, that team was the only team in some people's eyes in the Eastern Conference that can rival Miami Heat victory. And we did in the regular season. We played them 3 times in the regular season. We won 3 straight games in the regular season. And then we get to the playoffs, and well, y'all know LeBron in general, he's just a different playoff monster. But we got to the conference finals, and we were like, this is me being a Bulls fan back in 2011, which makes me, man, I was 13 years old at this point. No, 14, 15. 2011. I was smart enough to not be naive to think that we were going to destroy the Miami Heat in the playoffs like we did in the regular season. But game 1 came around, and we won. And we won convincingly. We clamped up LeBron. Luol Deng had a great game guarding LeBron. Derrick Rose, he started off the game struggling, and then the second half, he turned it up. And then the whole city of Chicago was like, yo, we're going to the finals. And then they swept us the rest of the series. They won 4 straight games, and that was the end of that. But yeah, this is the most hope I had ever had as a Bulls fan. Because again, I was born in 96. And then the second three-peat with Jordan, I was a baby. So I wasn't there for that. This is the biggest hope I've ever had for a Chicago Bulls team. And we were close, I guess. Yeah, we clamped LeBron up for game 1. And he was like, you know what? I'm going to actually be aggressive now. And then he started to be aggressive. And there was no stopping him. And there was no stopping Wade. And we definitely couldn't stop Chris Bosh this series either. But yeah, that makes sense as our biggest moment. Derrick Rose, youngest MVP in NBA history, was another one. Joakim Noah, Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah, that makes sense. Man, I'm like hitting, like, nostalgia's kicking in right now. I miss these teams. I would do some crazy things to have a good Bulls team again. That's all I gotta say. Next we have the Cleveland Cavaliers. It has to be the championship. There's nothing. Yeah, it has to be the championship. The first one in team history. LeBron comes back, wins a championship in his home state. And that's a big time moment for the city, for him. You see the picture that uses him crying because it's such a big thing. He was there for, I don't remember how long before he went to Miami. He was there for 8 years before going to Miami, or 7 years or whatever. And they never, ever was able to build a team around him to be successful. He had a couple finals appearances, and that was just like him putting on his backpack, like Delonte West, get in. Like he was really carrying teams. And then the second time around, they traded the first overall pick, Wiggins. So you got to remember, coming into the NBA, Wiggins was all the hype. He was a superstar in the making. They traded that superstar in the making because they wanted to help LeBron win right here, right now, and getting Kevin Love. And it worked out. So shout out to that, man. That was a big decision. Now we know that Wiggins is still decent right now, but he ain't the superstar that they were projecting him to be. But back in the day when they traded for Kevin Love, Wiggins was looked to be like a bona fide star. So it was a big deal trading your future for some now stuff, but it worked out. Dallas Mavericks. Oh, also championship. 2011 championship. Yeah, I almost was about to say Luka trade, but you got to remember they did win a championship here. Dirk, and it said duh. Yeah, if I would have got that wrong, I'm crazy. But yeah, Dirk gets his championship with his town. Nothing more can be asked of this, right? A player that is completely loyal, Hall of Fame career, and late in his career, they put it together and they win a championship, man. I was rooting so hard for this team. Because you know why? Because this team just beat my Bulls in the previous round. So, of course, I'm rooting against Miami. And, of course, Dirk is one of my favorite players of all time, too. So, yeah. Next team, Denver Nuggets. Oh, what could the Denver Nuggets... I don't know. I don't even have a guess for the Denver Nuggets. What is it? Jokic enters the starting five. Yes. So, right after Jokic enters the starting five, he had a couple games where he was looking really good. Like, they were like, oh, man, Jokic may end up being a star in his league. And then they end up trading away Jusuf Nurkic. And you gotta remember, Jusuf Nurkic is super young at that point. Because, I mean, he's young now. He's like 25 years old. So back then, he was like 22, 23. He was still having a good season. But they were like, Jokic looks like a guy they could be a star. And they were right. Look how thin he is in this picture. Or maybe it's the angle or the fact that he's moving. He looks skinny, y'all. He looks actually really, really skinny here. Without a doubt, the most defining moment of the decade for the Denver Nuggets is December 15th, 2016. They know the exact date. Head coach Mike Malone inserted Nikola Jokic to the starting lineup for good. Jokic had a surprise rookie campaign at center position. Before moving to power forward to make room for Jusuf Nurkic, yada, yada, yada. And then they traded away Jusuf Nurkic. Yeah. Jokic was inserted to the starting lineup, and the new era Nuggets basketball took off. The Nuggets ranked first in offensive rating for the remainder of the year, besting out Kevin Durant's Golden State Warriors and James Harden's Houston Rockets in that category. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. That season, Nurkic was traded November, not December. Yeah. Jokic, 25 games of starting lineup. He averaged 21, 10, and 5. 60, 42, 82 shooting splits. Oh my God. Do I need to go back and watch some old Jokic highlights? Even now, Jokic highlights are fire, but old Jokic highlights are good too. Yeah. Okay. Next, we have the Detroit Pistons, and this is another one where like I making the playoffs. You remember that series where like Brandon Jennings was talking? Was that? I gotta look that up. Was that Brandon Jennings with the Bucks, or was that Brandon Jennings with the Pistons where he was talking trash to LeBron? No, that was Stanley Johnson talking trash to LeBron, and LeBron and them just swept him. That would be my guess. No, Detroit leaving the Palace for Little Caesars Arena. I don't know why this would be significant. Oh, I had no idea that they didn't play in actual Detroit. You learn something new every year. So the Palace was not actually in Detroit. Obviously, it was in Auburn Hills. And then they actually moved to the city of Detroit. And then they start to sell more tickets because they were actually in Detroit. Cool. Oh, I forgot to guess. But okay. I would have guessed Kevin Durant signing. So I would have got an L anyway. The Jackson for Kerr swap. That makes sense. Steve Kerr took this team to the next level. You can say that it wasn't a lot of Steve Kerr. But I would say Steve Kerr needs to get some praise for this, because he created the death lineup. They had Draymond Green at the center position. He decided that, hey, after David Lee comes back for this injury, we just gonna have him come off the bench because we want to keep Draymond Green, young Draymond Green. So yeah, that makes sense. Shout out to Steve Kerr. Right now they're on a 4-game win streak. Then Houston Rockets. I was gonna say the James Harden trade. What else could it be? This trade really changed their entire franchise, and they got him for what seemed like close to nothing, because they gave up Kevin Martin. Jeremy Lamb was included in that trade. Regardless, they went from a team without a superstar to a team with a bona fide superstar, one of the best players a couple years later. Cool. Then we have the Pacers. The Pacers' signature moment of the decade could be that Eastern Conference Finals run they had against LeBron. Yeah. And it was they said specifically Game 6. Regardless, them making it to the Eastern Conference Finals in general was big. They won a Game 6. They went to a Game 7. This series was one of the best series I can remember of this decade. We had the Lance Stevenson blowing LeBron's ear. We had PG turning into a star. Roy Hibbert being dominant. And then like 2 years later, he was out of the league. Roy Hibbert being a dominant, because I remember specifically, he would just go like this. And the commentators would always say, rule of verticality. He would jump up and have his hands straight up like this. Rule of verticality. Never got called for fouls, and LeBron did not know what to do until Game 7, and then they won. Next team will be the Clippers. Kawhi and PG. Kawhi and PG. Steve Ballmer buys the team. They go hand in hand because obviously they needed a new owner after the whole, you know what I'm talking about. If the old owner was still owning the Clippers, there's no way Paul George would have came to the team. There's no way Kawhi Leonard would have came to the team. So yeah, it makes sense. Steve Ballmer does deserve some credit for all of that. He changed the whole narrative around the Clippers from being like another team that was considered the laughingstock of the league. He comes in, he switches things up, and then boom, now they're one of the best teams in the league. Lakers. LeBron signing. Even though it hasn't turned out to anything yet, there's no rings there just yet. Just the idea of the greatest player in the league currently coming to your team. Kobe tears his Achilles. Okay. You know, it's another one. I bet they have it in here. Yeah, the Chris Paul veto. I forgot about that. The Chris Paul veto should be another one. Why is his Achilles? I got to read why his Achilles is more significant than LeBron and Chris Paul. Kobe's injury marks the end of the championship era for the team and set them on the path to the lottery. Okay, sure. That makes sense then. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense now that you think about it, yeah. All right, next team. Oh, I would have guessed them getting to the conference finals, so I would have got this wrong too. But yeah, they were one of the few teams in NBA history to defeat a 1 seed as the 8th seed. Shout out to Tony Allen. Shout out to Zebo, officially announcing his retirement. This team was maybe not fun to watch because they were gritty, but if you like gritty stuff like me, this is one of the teams that I liked a lot. And Tony Allen clamped up that series against the Spurs. Yeah, but I would have think that it was them getting to the conference finals, right? Isn't that a little bit more than just that one series? Either way, the next team is the Miami Heat. It's the big three. Yeah, what more can I say? They got their championships. The Bucks got to be drafting Giannis. Easy, because what else did the Bucks do other than hit a draft pick at 15th that turned out to be a superstar? Timberwolves. I don't know. Let's see what the Timberwolves will be. Ending the 13-year playoff drought. And then here they are back. They back to being drought. They're about to go into second year, I guess. I mean, it's still early in the season, but like, it's not looking good for the Timberwolves right now. 13-year drought. They make the trade for Jimmy Butler, obviously, and Jimmy Butler helped them get to a championship. Then y'all remember how that ended. Pelicans. The Anthony Davis thing. The last couple of months of Anthony Davis was crazy. He had that's all folks going into the last game of the season. They were resting him, and then the league was like, no, you can't rest him. He got to play at least 20 minutes. So he would play exactly 20 minutes, and Alvin Gentry would get him out the game. That would be my guess. And it's not. Tom Benson buys the team. I mean, sure. Next, the Knicks. Linsanity. The Bargnani trade. Okay. The Bargnani trade is still crazy. They traded some assets and they got Bargnani, who was not good. You know, statistically, Bargnani's one of those players you look at his stats like Kenny. He averaged 19, 18 points per game. How was he not good? He wasn't good, bro. He wasn't good. I'm sorry, Bargnani fans out there. He was not very good. And I think the Knicks gave up like 2 picks for him. They gave up Marcus Camby, Steve Novak, Quentin Richardson, a 2nd-round pick, 2 2nd-round picks, and 1 first, which ended up being Jakob. I would say it would be Linsanity because for like 2-3 weeks, the Linsanity thing was ridiculous. OKC, they made that finals appearance. Russell Westbrook tears his meniscus in the playoffs, or I guess Patrick Beverley tears Russell Westbrook's meniscus. That does make sense too. So yeah, that makes sense too because they won 60 games and they potentially could have went on to win a championship if he doesn't tear his meniscus, but he does. And then, well, that ends that. Orlando Magic has to be something to do with Dwight Howard, whether it be them making it to the finals or the fact that the ending of Dwight Howard there was kind of weird. And it was. The Dwightmare. The Nightmare, the Dwightmare. That's kind of a W of a name. Yeah, I mean, you can do your own research here. This does make a lot of sense because the ending of this was crazy. The interviews, him and Van Gundy throwing shots at each other in interviews and stuff, where they're like 2 feet away from each other. They're throwing shots at each other. It's some crazy stuff there. 76ers has to be something to do with Sam Hinkie. It has to be. The Andrew Bynum trade. I don't remember the specifics of this trade. Let me do some reading. So this was them, according to this article, them starting to turn around from the tanking to like starting to win games. They end up winning, it was like 34 games. And okay, I would have said Sam Hinkie stuff. Suns. I don't know. Let's see what the Suns is. Oh, Western Conference Finals. Okay, that makes sense. 2010. I don't even remember that final series or that Western Conference Final series. I'm gonna have to do some research on that because I don't remember it too well. I don't remember who's on this team, man. That's a W. Oh man, that's an L. That's an L for me. Not to Barbosa had to be there somewhere, right? Trailblazers got to be Damian Lillard, either his game winner against the Rockets from a few years ago or his game winner against OKC from last year. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it has to be this because he waved off Russell Westbrook and Paul George. Neither of them have ever played a single minute in that Thunder uniform since that day. And then, yeah, now they're struggling. But they got all the way to the conference finals. They got all the way to the conference finals. Sacramento Kings, I don't know. NBA rejects relocation to Seattle. Yeah, man, Kings fans are crazy. They're crazy, and they went crazy when they heard the idea of them potentially moving to Seattle. Seattle fans would have loved it, but the Kings fans was like, nah, and then the NBA said no too. Spurs. The Kawhi Leonard stuff. It got to be the Kawhi Leonard stuff. Oh, they won a championship. Oh, yeah, I guess that's important too. But the Kawhi Leonard stuff definitely should be in there. Was it a quad? You know, Uncle Dennis, all that stuff. But yes, they did win a championship, and then his finals MVP that year. Raptors. Kawhi Leonard's shot against the 76ers. Nothing else can be there. I guess, okay, the title in general, sure. But specifically that shot will go down as one of the greatest shots I've ever seen. Utah Jazz, the Donovan Mitchell trade on draft night. The Inez Cantor trade. That's weird that this is the signature moment of the decade. Even the Rudy, they mentioned in here, even the Rudy Gobert trade on draft night could have been in there. I don't agree with that one. And lastly, the Washington Wizards. Paul Pierce game. Nope. It wasn't Paul Pierce win. It was John Wall's one. All right. I was going to say Paul Pierce game winner. He said, I ain't called back. I called game or whatever. But John Wall hit another game winner in that same series. But they end up losing because Kelly Olynyk was decided to be the best player ever in the game 7. That's the whole article. That's the whole article, man. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Some stuff I agree and disagree with. Some stuff I completely forgot about that I got to go back and hit the research button on because that Phoenix Suns team that got over to the conference finals, I do not remember what that roster consisted of or who they even played in 2010. That's something for me to figure out. All right, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave it a like. I'll be back tomorrow, baby. We got like 3 more days of consistency, which is crazy to think about. We went a whole month of just uploading videos, and I didn't take my foot off the gas. I don't think I put out one bad video this month. That's how we do things, baby. All right, I'll be back tomorrow. Peace.